Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Thanks for tuning to it. I'm Jeff. That's Tom. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you go to listen live via the streaming free always. Don't miss anything. But, hey, if you do miss something, we got you covered. All 3 hours posted every day upon the conclusion of the program, both on iTunes and in our own audio vault. You can email the show if you like. It's jcs@979espnradio.com. On Twitter, it's at JCameron Show. WTSM app, good for your mobile devices. And we're on YouTube, ESPN Tallahassee. Florida State, by the way, on this Lawn Maintenance Tuesday, opens, if you may have seen this last night, as a dog at home to Miami, a 3-point underdog at home. Some of you asked when was the last time Florida State was a home underdog, and I sadly was able to point out last year against Clemson. We're making it a habit.
And some spreads for the Sunday. You know, I think the Win is the one that posts on Sunday.
Right.
It had Florida State as a 1-point favorite, and within hours,
Seconds.
yeah, it was 2.5 Miami.
Most people who have watched the team play would go, ha! Florida State's a favorite? I wouldn't make Florida State a favorite over Duke. On the road? Marginally.
Yeah, probably about a 2 to 5 point favorite.
Maybe. We'll see how this one goes. I'm not so sure. It's dicey. Just put it this way, I wouldn't touch it. Now, here's the fun thing, and you'll hear us talk about it after this hour is up. We go to headlines. I'm trying to admittedly save my voice. A lot of times we do 2 hours here and then 2 hours of headlines. But I did the War Chant Report, and we got the Man Cave Show tonight over at the 7th Hill Tap Room, which we're calling the 7th in a row room. And that's a great room. And that's where we stand until we don't, right? Until we lose, it's still 7 in a row.
Yeah, may as well get it in this week. At the very least. I mean, it could be another year. We could hit the 2,000-day mark,
Well, the funny thing
mark.
about it is I get it. I get the absolute desperation and sadness and angst and frustration and everything else in between that this fan base feels while watching this team play. But yet, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they'll lose to Miami. For starters, Miami presents a very straightforward approach. You're not getting up-tempo zone read stuff, where spread stuff. You're getting a very traditional offense that Florida State can line up and play base and really just play straight ahead like they did last year in Miami when they had to get right after coming off the North Carolina game and they looked so bad. I mean, what were we talking about going into last year's game? The same damn thing. Florida State looks lethargic, confused, lost, bad. Coaches need to check themselves. We got to figure something out. What's going on around here? We were talking about the Miami game as being maybe a streak ender, and then they came out and they played pretty straightforward the rest of the year. Nothing really exotic, nothing really all that complicated, and they have the athletes against non-spread tempo teams to do that. And I think Miami could struggle against Florida State's defense here on Saturday. And if that happens, if you're able to slow Walton down and make Rozier beat you, you're in the game in the second half. And what happens if you're in the game in the second half? Well, we all know when you're on the wrong end of a losing streak, an historically long streak to your arch rival, how you're going to lose this game, how you're going to blow this game, the play that has to be made in which the game is hinging. The doubt creeps in. I mean, we've been on the wrong side of it. Miami won 6 in a row against us. And I can remember it not all that long ago. And every time we got into a game against them and it was close, I thought, what are we going to do to lose this in the fourth quarter? Who's going to miss the kick? Who's going to miss a block or a tackle that's pivotal in the moment? Who's going to make a boneheaded play that's going to make the difference between winning and losing? The shoe's been on the other foot for a long time. And if the game is close, and I talk about game pressure all the time, if the game is close and you can get this thing late into the third, early into the fourth, tied within 3, within 4, does doubt begin to creep in? I would think certainly it would for Miami.
Yeah, well, last year, they made the play to keep us in the game. Remember, Kaya had the ball.
Throws the pick.
They go up 2 scores if they score on that drive, right?
And they're about to dominate.
Yes, that game is over at that point. But instead, another lifeline is offered, and Florida State takes advantage of it. Miami gets the big punt return, but then there's the blocked extra point. So, it can turn. But the problem is, even in the last few years, 2014, it was atrocious, but that was that team's nature. These last 3 meetings with Miami have all been razor thin, the margin. I think the game that we outplayed Miami start to finish the most Actually, it was 2 years ago right here. It was 2015.
Yeah, and that turned out to be closer than it needed to be.
Oh,
yeah.
In that first half, you should be up 2-3 scores easy. I mean, easy. And you're not. And I can remember because I sat in the stands for that game just behind Miami sideline. Wouldn't you know, there were a lot of tickets available there for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
So sitting behind that sideline, you watch them come to life as they went into the locker room at halftime. They knew they didn't deserve to be where they were.
To be in it, right.
Then they take the lead in the second half, and you go, well, you know what? You just blanked away your chance here. Florida State does come back, the big third down throw with Everett Golson. And that's how streaks are, this long. In a rivalry, even if one team recruits so much better than the other, there's going to be a moment where you need to get a little bit lucky. Florida State's had a couple of those last year and the year before. To me, I just think this weekend you might want to play from ahead here because if you get behind, the pile-on effect could happen in this particular scenario.
Well, and they got down last year, significantly so, and a couple years prior to that. When I was down there watching the game, Hard Rock Stadium, 50-yard line, we're down 16-0 and 23-7. I think. I mean, I didn't think they were going to come back that night. Of course, in 14, it helped to have Jameis Winston on your side. And Dalvin, who played exceptionally well in this series, really against everybody. And there is no Dalvin and there is no Jameis right now to kind of resurrect, the glory. And instead, it's a true freshman quarterback and an offensive line that has been very suspect. Going against the front seven for Miami, that's very good. So I do think that you're right. The writing's on the wall for the streak to end. But there's something about a streak. Hence the reason they tell you never bet against it. And it's 7 straight wins, not all of which have been Florida State playing better than Miami. And yet they have found a way to win, including in some bizarre fashion. Blocking an extra point just a year ago speaks to that. The team that's trying to get over the hump, the team that desperately wants to end an embarrassing losing streak in a rivalry situation, is the one that presses, is the one that tries too hard, for lack of a better term. Kentucky has Florida beat. And all of a sudden, it felt like the team that's up by 13 is the one that's losing. It's that the air sucked out of the stadium. Some things don't go their way. Florida begins to drive. And as you watch it on your couch, you go, Florida's going to win this game. And you know it. And we've all watched it happen. Tennessee came back to beat Florida a couple years ago, but you and I sat there thinking, look at this. Tennessee at home, the better team, they're getting drubbed.
Yeah, that was the Saturday we played USF and pulled away and scored, 100 points. But then that game comes on, and Tennessee doesn't want it. In the first half, they just don't want it.
They want it too much.
Correct.
They're making mistakes in the red zone, down on the 10-yard line, the kind of stupidity you see.
And so the ball, you keep handing it back. It's like, here's momentum, here's momentum, here's momentum.
Georgia for years against Florida. Yeah. There's another great example where Georgia's clearly the better team. They lost twice to Trayon Harris.
Well, and that's one thing you want to point to and hope for with Mark Richt on the other sideline is he's 0-2 against Trayon Harris. And I think Blackman's a bit of a better player than Trayon Harris.
A lot better. And this is a Florida State team that's better than that Florida team.
Yes.
By a lot. And so it's there. I'm not saying there are signs that suggest they're going to go out and play great Saturday. I don't see them. So far, they haven't played great. If they put it together and they play to their talent and you get it into the second half and it's a close game, does Miami begin to feel the weight of the expectation that this is the year they snap the streak? For Miami right now, there's a lot of positive momentum. This game takes on a lot of different meanings in a lot of different angles. Recruiting, are you handing over the keys to the state? What's going on here? Because Mark Richt, since getting there, has done a very good job of starting to make connections at those local high schools that had shut out Golden and previous coaching staffs. He knows, being from down there, having played there, what it takes to embrace those guys and to keep that homegrown talent at home. And what's hurt Miami is, they haven't won the big game. They haven't won the moments that can change and alter the perception of what they are. But with Florida State stumbling about, with Florida every week beating average to bad teams by a point in the last second, Miami's got a real opportunity here. And they sense that. And it's big for them to win this game. And so, I'd love it if it didn't happen because it inflicts even more damage to the psyche than you could ever have imagined, even from last year's blocked extra point. I mean, you would talk about not being able to get over the hump when all signs point to it happening. It would be this one if you lose this game. could also save Florida State's season. It could right the ship. You could keep from drowning here. And, yes, you still have difficult issues to tackle at the end of the season. We're not going to forget what the Wake game looked like or the NC State loss, etc. But you do have these games to play, and I'd like to win them. And you'd like to have some momentum moving forward against Duke and Louisville, and then later on, obviously, Clemson and Florida. So it starts now.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say, and you always rather, jump out to a lead than fall behind. But I think, what Ira said is correct, and it's echoing what Coach said on Saturday, a little bit too on Sunday. It's a fragile team, confidence-wise. And that's crazy given what spring was all about and what we heard about this team in the fall, about the toughness. And what we saw against Alabama. Can we throw that back out there just for a moment? Special teams cost them against Alabama. But the defense never gave up in that moment. They played with heart and toughness, mental toughness. They could have packed it in. There were a couple drives that Alabama had. I know they ended up scoring a touchdown. It's going to happen when you have 4 or 5 possessions inside the 50-yard line. But that defense fought to the very last play. So they've shown moments of heart. In this game, this weekend, they are woefully outcoached and outgunned at the point of attack, especially offensive line versus defensive line. But they show the heart to finish the job. So I don't think there's quitting going on. It's just there's confusion and a disconnect. But Miami believes on the other sideline. They believe in what's going on.
Yeah, but they've believed each of the last 2 years. They can believe all they want. Next thing you know, they give up the lead in the third quarter, and they go right back to thinking that they're the losers they are. You got to make it happen, though. You're right. Now, you can't let this thing stretch too far.
No, because, again, it seems like there's a pile-on effect, especially for that O-line. I think when Jimbo's talking about being fragile, I think he's talking specifically about that segment group.
Well, and God almighty, if that's the case, you couldn't bring yourself to understand how in the hell that's possible. With that group that they recruited that has spent as much time together as they have, that they could be that uncommunicative and that lost, that, one guy goes down and you spiral out of control into being completely impotent. I can't understand.
That's what we watched.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying it's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. It'd make you want to fire the coach right then and there, meaning Rick Trickett. You'd want to fire his ass right there, but you can't. And we're gonna play.
You need your receiver this week. You need 18. I know he played through some pain last week. Tate's going to have to play through some pain this weekend, too. There's no doubt about that because I think your other 2 receivers, Gavin, sorry, he's one of your other A receivers, but 2 of your receivers, 11 and 8, I think one's a little too raw for the moment, and the other one, you just can't count on him. And maybe he shows up for a rivalry game because he knows that there'll be more cameras on the game.
But also get him the ball in some ways that are creative. Get him to move him around. Get something going for him. I get it. You want to run your system. Can we get the ball to somebody, please? If you think he's a dynamic playmaker, get him the ball. Wake found a way to get the ball to that freshman.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Sure.
And everything we do now is so damn difficult. Everything's so arduous, so freaking difficult. And I don't know how you remedy that, but he's paid to, so I'd like to see it happen on Saturday. And it wouldn't solve all the problems, but it would go a long way.
The daily confidence level.
4.
It's better than I thought it would be on a Tuesday after that performance.
4. I think it may get to 5. It may get to 50-50 by the time we get to the game. There are a lot of demons. A lot of demons over there. A lot of demons. We've watched how those things dance around in your head. I've seen a lot of really good teams and players who look great going into a game that has been the bane of their existence, suddenly puke all over themselves. We've watched it happen. I've seen Florida State do that in various sports when there is this unspoken thing out there about trying to get past a group. In baseball against Florida, I'll grant you they won the national championship, and it was a really good baseball team. Florida wasn't having a great year, and you felt like just scoring a run against Florida was beginning to get to be a thing, right? That day you predicted they'd score 2 runs in the first, and they did. They ended up losing that game, didn't they?
But, they got blown out, I do believe.
But they did score the 2 runs, and I remember thinking, hallelujah, it's possible. It's possible because it gets in your head, and you press, and Coach talks about that all the time. Players trying to do too much. That exists.
Okay, well, and Coach was big on this. Again, let's just suspend the anger for a moment and have a discussion because I know people who are listening to this, well, damn it, it shouldn't be that way. I got you.
Yeah.
2012 Orange Bowl. Remember when Coach said they're champions? These kids are champions now, and it changes things?
Yeah, against Northern Illinois.
Man, again. But 2013 did happen right afterwards, and beyond Jameis, everybody did look like their ducks were in a row. Do you think there's anything to, and I'm just positing the question and then ducking because there's a battle axe coming my way. Is there anything to the
winning
idea
the game?
That winning could at least do something for them?
I do think, listen, it sounds so stupid, but it's true. Yes, sure. Going 0-3 would not have been ideal before facing Miami.
There's no battle axe,
No.
so this is good.
Sure, winning, yes, is the ultimate deodorant, as they say. Might you be able to not hyper-focus on all of the negative plays, all of the problems that we've discussed so far these last 2 days, and really certainly everybody discussed on social media Saturday and Sunday? Might you be able to overlook some of those things if you're a player because you got the win and not harp on what, disastrous play in the second quarter led to this result? If it had been a loss, I think you'd be looking and nitpicking every play. So maybe.
See, I think what that's battling, though, is the overwhelming negativity on social media because that just sinks teams. As Jimbo says, they got no chance now because the negativity is just so overwhelming.
Well, and I'd like him to stop doing that. It's ridiculous. And, they're not struggling because people are worried about what somebody is writing on a message board. They're just not. They're struggling because they don't know where to line up, because we waste timeouts, because we come out and have no earthly idea what we're doing, game in and game out in the first quarter and a half. That's why they're struggling. It has nothing to do with the fact that somebody wrote something mean on a message board or some afternoon talk show host said something that might ruffle the feathers or because somebody wrote an article saying they don't look like they're playing real well. I mean, if you can't handle that, then what the hell are we doing here? I mean, that's ridiculous. Now, I get why coaches don't want players to listen in or read message boards. For that matter, nobody really should. It's like reading the comment section at the end of an article about politics. I mean, it's just going to immediately fall into the cesspool of stupid. A bunch of people screaming from a vantage point that has nothing to do with the article or why it was written. So, yeah, tell your players that. Tell your players not to listen. Tell your players that it's about execution. It's about practicing hard. It's about focus. Sure, coaches should say that. But don't get into after the game if you don't play well. It's about the people telling them they're bad or the message boards or anything else. That's dumb. And he knows better than that. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
When you're in need of auto repairs, look no further than Nice Tire and Auto Service. Nice has been in business for 16 years with long-term, knowledgeable sales associates. They have the latest wheel balancing machine in the industry. And for passenger vehicles, they service AC, brakes, suspension, tune-ups, and much more. Never sit through a long wait. Nice Tire and Auto has 10 service bays to get you back on the road quickly. If you have tire problems, check out their large inventory with various Goodyear and Michelin tires. Nice Tire and Auto Service, 4792 Bluntstown Highway, 574-4100.
Landowners, Mahindra's inventory clearance sale is going on now. We're reducing prices like never before on the toughest tractors on earth. Like a Mahindra Emax 22 as low as $99 a month. Or get up to $8,100 in cash back and savings. Plus, Mahindra's 7-year limited powertrain warranty comes standard.
I'm talking tough, like a state of mind. Tough, like a soldier on the front line. Tough when it gets rough, like my Ford truck, always enough. I'm talking tough.
Franklin Spring Creek Ford, the place to find your next truck in southern Georgia.
I'm talking tough.
Hey y'all, we're Chris and Preston from Low Cash. Head to Franklin Spring Creek Ford and see them about all of your vehicle needs.
And keep your records, you're not required to service with us. To maintain the warranty, you perform the manufacturer's recommended maintenance and keep your records. You can do that at any licensed repair shop in the U.S. or Canada. It's that easy. What's the catch? There are no catches, hidden fees, or gimmicks. Kraft Nissan provides the product as an added value to our customers for doing business with us. So when you're ready to buy from Kraft Nissan, the home of our original and the only real lifetime warranty at no charge. Kraft Nissan on Mahan Drive between Academy Sports and Costco.
The secret to better gas mileage and a longer-lasting engine? Super Lube it every 3 months or 3,000 miles. The secret to even better gas mileage? Fuel Joules, a gas tank additive that'll increase your MPG by as much as 7%. And today, when you change your oil at Super Lube, you get a free bottle of Fuel Joules. Crystal Matthews and Amber Cossack own Solid Start, the company that makes Fuel Joules.
Every time we sell a bottle of Fuel Joules, a donation will be made to the National Breast Cancer Foundation.
In October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
There are 19 Tallahassee area Super Lubes. There's probably one right around the corner right now. Free offer valid without coupons or discounts.
Barry knows cool. He's keeping you comfortable. Barry knows cool. You can put him to the test.
You can always count on the Knowles to deliver. But what about your home comfort system? If your system is older or giving you problems, call the professionals at Barano Heating and Air Conditioning to check it out. Make the right call this season and turn to the experts at Carrier and Barano Heating and Air. Go Knowles. License number CAC 057652.
Are you aware of the new OSHA silica dust regulations that went into effect September 23rd? Are you prepared with the correct solutions to make your employees and your company compliant? DeWalt and Cornerstone Tool and Fastener have a full line of OSHA compliant solutions ranging from tools to accessories and shrouds and even dust extractors. OSHA rules intend to limit workers' exposure to breathable crystalline silica. DeWalt and Cornerstone are your first line of defense with the solutions you need. Cornerstone Tool and Fastener, 1110 Stuckey Ave and 3269 Crawfordville Highway.
You're listening to The Jeff Cameron Show on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Lawn Maintenance Tuesday will lead you right into Seminole headlines, and then should make mention that tonight we'll be doing the Seventh Hill seven in a row man cave show.
Yeah,
right.
The 7 in a row tap room,
something like that. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm on NyQuil. It's not a hard drug.
You're not on the Dayquil. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's Dayquil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Dayquil, but I mean, I just call them all NyQuil. I mean, it's not NyQuil, just NyQuil.
Correct.
Yeah. But it doesn't, I mean, you know, when you're hazy-headed, you're hazy-headed regardless. It doesn't do much other than it gives you a little bit of an energy. I don't really think that. So let me ask you this question before we do the What's on Tap. Do you think that the recommended dosage in those things is, I would guess, I'm fairly certain I'm right about this, a gross underestimate of what you should actually take because they're fearful people will overdose.
Yeah, and then they'll sue.
Right.
Sure.
So I think, in truth, if they tell you to finish one little cup thingy of those, you should drink 2.
I think you could handle it.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
I don't think they're looking at somebody who's 6'1" and 210.
Yeah.
That's probably not the average dosage that they're thinking about. They're probably thinking about somebody who's 5'7" and $170.
You're probably right. Yeah, I need to. Well, I always take more than it tells you to.
Well, that's why you get the bottle too instead of the caplets.
Well, that's the other question I was going to ask. Do you take the caplets or do you take the bottle? You get the liquids.
If I'm at home, my parents always have the Dayquil, NyQuil caplets, and this segment's not endorsed by them or bought and paid for by them. But
I wish it were.
Me too.
It'd be a funny thing to have endorsed.
Well, actually,
hey, everybody, got your NyQuil?
No, actually, the truth is since we're not endorsing them, why don't you go get the Publix brand or the CVS brand and save like $4 for all the advertising?
Yeah, it's the same thing, right?
But if it's just me at my house, no, it's
yeah.
And good night.
And you don't even bother with the little cap thing. You take it straight from the bottle. That's my man.
Like a man.
All right, there we are. We're on the same page. All right, let's do this thing.
Ready for a cold one? Proof Brewing Company in Railroad Square Art Park presents What's on Tap. So, Jeff, what'll it be?
The War Chant Man Cave show tonight at the 7th Hill Tap Room. We'll be there. Looking forward to that. Muster up some strength, get in there and have a good time and make fun of all things Miami. Tom and I are going to compete on the Man Cave show tonight with a little shuffleboard. That can go either way. I've beaten Tom. Tom's beaten me. We've both handled each other in dominant fashion. It's weird. Like most of the time, you kind of look at somebody, you're like, oh, I really beat him most of the time. Or these are always wars. But it's been weird. When Tom's beating me in shuffleboard, he's beating me badly. When I'm beating him in shuffleboard, I'm beating him badly.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have real close matches.
No, it's like a basketball game. It's just a game of runs, you know?
It's crazy.
We're just playing one long basketball game.
It's odd how that works.
And the great thing about the Seventh Hill Tap Room is it features Proof Brewing Company beers, you know, like the 850. Might that tickle your fancy? Maybe not tonight, given you're sick. But
yeah. Well, I may have one. I've been known to have one even in sickness.
Did you know Proof is 10 years old? It was founded in 2007.
I didn't know that, and I'm excited to hear it because I think that's it's actually a wonderful sign of growth and strength and stability.
And in 2014 is when they opened up where we used to be in town, you know, on the Art Park side of town.
I remember when they were opening that, and those guys came in and talked to us about it. It was wonderful.
They did, but it's crazy. They used to be on Tennessee Street when I was in undergrad. That's how long they've been around.
Our thanks to Proof Brewing Company for coming on board to sponsor What's on Tap. That's a great thing. Yeah, let's keep that rolling. You know, we should get a lot of free Proof beer.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
You know, we should just get a ton of free Proof beer. That's what I was thinking about.
At some point, I really believe that they're going to tap the Creatures in the Dark and put it in cans. You know what I mean? Like
tasty.
You put that in the cans. I mean, you can get it at the Seventh Hill when they actually have it on the tap system. And then you can get the Crowler, the 32-ounce Crowler, and from happy hour 4 to 7 every day. You know, you can get those buy one, get one half off. I mean, there's just a lot of love to go around.
A lot of love. You got it going on. That's right. That's the way to hit it up. By the way, can I give you a statistical profile? It's fun to do. Thank you, Bill Connolly, for providing this. Florida State, upon beating Miami each of the last 7 years, has sent Miami spiraling. And you want to see the little picture, a little snapshot of the before and after. First 5 games, 4-1 on average for Miami prior to facing Florida State. The percentile performance is very impressive there. It's domination for Miami. The 3 games following their loss annually to Florida State, they end up being basically barely a top 80 team in terms of performance. They average losing by more than 2 touchdowns, and the average yards per play shift from the opponent getting around 4 to 6.5. Miami goes from around 7.5 yards per play offensively to 4. The last 5 games after, and they lose all those 0-3. Then the last 5 games, you know, they pick it back up. And they begin to win on average 37-19. Their offense rebounds, averages about 6.5 yards per play. The opponent falls back down. So I guess what this tells you in a nutshell is that following their losses to Florida State, they go on a 3-game stretch in which they absolutely fall off a cliff and resemble nothing of the team that played the first few games or 4 or 5 games. And then they usually gather themselves, they right the ship in time to save a decent season, but it's not good enough certainly to meet their goals or win the division. You'd love to see that continue. Don't know that it will. I do think Mark Richt's got some things going in the right direction there.
Yeah, but when you open and you talk about how streaks matter and they, you know, there's something that builds inside and anxiety for the team that's trying to break the streak, there's proof of it right there. It's, you know, obviously Richt's only got 1 year of tenure in this rivalry as a coach for Miami. But with Golden and Shannon, I mean, that was real. It was real. It mattered so much to them that they would crumble in the weeks following because they put this game on a pedestal and they can't recover if they're dealt the losing decision, which they have been forever and a day now.
Well, and he didn't win last year. And, you know, when he was at Georgia, they lost to Florida when they were a lot better than Florida. So you'd like to think some of that negative mojo will carry on over to this rivalry with him in those moments. Those are the things that drove Georgia fans nuts.
Well, and beyond, you know, last year was a bit of an exception that they got lost there in the middle. But, you know, beyond this year's shortcomings, Jimbo does typically prepare for this opponent quite well. Whatever he's got in the arsenal, he finds a way to utilize.
Does he have it this year, though? Does he have it in the arsenal? I mean, we haven't seen it. I don't know. You know, it's true to say that they played a lot better brand of football against Alabama than they have since. But that offense in the second half was not very good against Alabama. So you go back and you say 2 quarters there because Francois looked terrible there, and that offense just looked bad. So 3rd and 4th quarters there. Obviously, the offense was not very good against NC State. Basically, that whole game had their moments, but nothing looked too good. And then, obviously, this last game, they were terrible. So we've really now watched about 10 quarters of football for Florida State in which the offense has not looked any good. Does it get right for this game?
It's hard to know, but he made it work with Everett. I mean, you do have Dalvin Cook on your side, but that's Everett Golston throwing the football.
Yeah.
And it was those receivers who were diminutive. So,
But Everett had played a lot of football. I think that's the difference. Everett had played a ton of football. Be curious to see if Jimbo bothers to utilize James Blackman's legs this weekend at all.
He's got some instinct to him, but, the funny thing is at this point, when Blackman hits his low of lows, what difference is that between him or the replacement quarterback? The initial talk was he'll elevate certain things. He's got more throws in his arsenal
by far.
Naturally.
Yeah.
But if the bottom end of James Blackman is still in him and he gets banged up, I mean, how much worse can you do?
How much worse than James? Yeah.
Versus the idea of DeAndre Francois. I'm not saying go get the kid hurt, but what I'm saying is versus DeAndre Francois.
Take your chances,
where the fall off is so steep, and that's a talking point about protecting your quarterback. I think this is a little bit different of a circumstance.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. And I do think just to create some balance, just to where kids can't pin their ears because they know you're never going to run them. Listen, Tommy Tuberville was terrible on Saturday.
Ooh.
But let me say, he did tell you one thing that was 100% accurate. And he talked about, I'd rather defend Florida State than I would Wake Forest or schools like Wake Forest because I know Florida State's not going to run their quarterback and I don't have to defend 11. I only have to defend 10. And when he said that, I thought, that's true. That is absolutely true. Apart from all your sucking everywhere else, that is accurate, however. And then when you think about Jimbo's idol going all in on the quarterback running, I just feel like you gotta give this kid a chance by allowing him to run safely. Get down. He doesn't need to run for 100 yards or anything like that. Enough of that has to be in there. That goal line call was brilliant, and he walked in. Now, they called a hold, but okay. I mean, I'd do that again. You present the option, and now and I don't mean physically the option. I mean, you let them know that running the quarterback is an option. They got to play honest.
You can bring in 16 to run the option. That's what you do.
Oh, well, if you're going to actually do that, but you're also telling the world at that point, this is what we're doing. But
I'll tell you one thing about JJ, though.
Big gas kid?
He's a big kid. He's not afraid to throw up the seams now, and that's something that would have to improve this week. And it's hard to do against those linebackers, I'll grant you.
Yeah, I don't want to make a habit of it this week. You're right.
But you got to do it and show it, don't you? The same way that you have to run the quarterback, you've got to show
that scheme that open
outside of 25 or 20-plus yards down the field, you can make a throw in between the hash marks. You got to.
So what you're telling me is you can't win on a bunch of screen passes this weekend?
Well, again, if the offensive line for the first couple of drives, plays like it did this past weekend, it's the perfect camouflage because then you never know if there's a screen pass on.
Yeah.
Because you're in the backfield.
Because you're back there no matter what the play is.
Right.
It's just,
Right. But at the same time, if you're going to allow those linebackers to never have to honor the middle of the field.
It's hilarious.
Well, you know how fast they run downhill.
Brutal.
They'll be perimeters and in your backfield.
Jeff Cameron Show 97.9 ESPN Radio.
When you're in need of auto repairs, look no further than Nice Tire and Auto Service. Nice has been in business for 16 years with long-term, knowledgeable sales associates. They have the latest wheel balancing machine in the industry. And for passenger vehicles, they service AC, brakes, suspension, tune-ups, and much more. Never sit through a long wait. Nice Tire and Auto has 10 service bays to get you back on the road quickly. If you have tire problems, check out their large inventory with various Goodyear and Michelin tires. Nice Tire and Auto Service, 4792 Bluntstown Highway, 574-4100.
Landowners, Mahindra's inventory clearance sale is going on now. We're reducing prices like never before on the toughest utility vehicles on earth. Like a Mahindra XTV 750S as low as $135 a month. Or get up to $3,450 in cash back and savings. Plus, Mahindra's 3-year limited powertrain warranty comes standard.
I'm talking tough, like a state of mind. Tough, like a soldier on the front line. Tough when it gets rough, like my Ford truck. Always enough, I'm talking tough.
Franklin Spring Creek Ford, the place to find your next truck in southern Georgia.
I'm talking tough.
Hey y'all, we're Chris and Preston from Low Cash. Head to Franklin Spring Creek Ford and see them about all of your vehicle needs.
To imported energy drinks, So does our mind wander? You bet it does. Wait, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. That's why Sport Clips is Sport Clips. They make a haircut memorable, but with as little thought required from us as possible. A great MVP haircut experience with a hot steam towel, massaging shampoo, and sweet, sweet sports on TV. So if that man in the mirror looks like an island castaway, or just has some hair that needs attention, well, you've got this solved because you know Sport Clips. And if you're already looking Sport Clips handsome, well played, sir. Well played.
Sport Clips haircuts. Find a location near you at sportclips.com.
Tallahassee loves the corner pocket as much as a crystal ball winning catch.
He's looking, he lost it to the end zone. It's Benjamin! Touchdown! With 13 seconds left.
The 97.9 ESPN radio special is a must-have every Monday and Wednesday at the corner pocket. 10 mouth-watering wings, a fresh side of fries, and a chilled domestic pint of beer are just $9.79 all day long. Be sure and try the fish blend of sauces, a true wing eater's favorite. The Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
He's gone!
Home of Trivia Tuesday, Beer Bingo Thursday, and the daily $7.99 lunch special.
You can always count on the crisp, refreshing taste of Bud Light, just like you can always count on Tailgate Terry. Without Tailgate Terry, you wouldn't have cold Bud Lights and 7-layer dip at every pregame. That's 56 layers per season. Just the right amount if you ask Terry. Just don't ask him while he's inflating the 8-foot mascot he blows up for tailgating. Tailgate Terry is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB St. Louis, Missouri.
ESPN Radio Sports Center.
I'm Christine Lisi. Here's what's happening. The spotlight tonight on the Bronx, where the Twins and Yankees meet in the AL wildcard game. 7 Eastern, ESPN Radio, ESPN TV, and the ESPN app. Urban Santana and Luis Severino. Severino, one reason New York could make a deep playoff run, in the opinion of ESPN's David Ross.
Bullpen is so deep. They've got good starting pitching. They've got guys that can give them some innings. But they literally can go to the bullpen in the fourth if they want to, with Green and Chapman now back in form. I mean, they've got all these guys in the back end of that bullpen. David Robertson's back there now. Severino is probably one of the best starters that they have.
Minnesota third baseman Miguel Sano sidelined much of last month by a shin injury, left off the 25-man roster for tonight's game. The Astros will start Justin Verlander in Game 1 of the ALDS against Chris Sale and the Red Sox on Thursday. NFL, Colts quarterback Andrew Luck, coming back from shoulder surgery, will return to practice this week. No target date, though, when he'll return to game action. NBA, Lakers rookie Lonzo Ball sprained his ankle in last night's preseason game. He says he'll be fine.
It's official. Weekends are now reserved for football. So come watch it at B-Dubs with other fans who are all there for the same reason, to watch sports. In a place packed with roaring fans and a vast menu of food. It's built for fans. It's home for football. It's Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
Live from the Dale Earnhardt Jr. Buick GMC Cadillac Studios in the capital city of Tallahassee, this is the Jeff Cameron Show on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
That happened just before we came on the air.
YouTube folks saw it.
That's a painful sneeze.
It looked like it. There was an extra
There was a
jolt
violence
to it.
there, man. Violence. I hate that. Am I the only one who has that? Do you guys have that? If you sneeze hard, does it hurt you?
Well, where, in the back of the throat?
No, like across your chest.
Once in a great while.
Pisses me off. Matthew Leach, MLB.com, and he's from Tallahassee and has joined us every year for the start of the playoffs, will be joining us this week. Not tonight. I kind of would have done it under the weather, plus headlines, all that, but we will have him on. Of course, tonight, that is the other thing that's on tap after the Man Cave show is Minnesota and New York. I know you're pumped up because your lovely girlfriend is a Minneapolis native and a diehard Twins fan, and so you'll be watching and vicariously rooting through her for the Twins to get it done.
Well, it's the Yankees too, so of course I'll be rooting. And I'll be actually probably sticking around either upstairs or downstairs
to watch the game.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. I'm excited for her. You know, you can watch and dial in for somebody else. It's like if you're watching the Mets with me or something, you know?
Yeah, I root for it, yeah.
If I'm watching, I mean, we did it. You watched.
I watched us get shoved against.
Well, but I was right there with you. I fought with you. But then you watched some of the 2015 run with me.
Yeah, I did.
So what I'll do is I'll dial in, not expect a victory, but if they get one, that's a beautiful thing.
It's baseball. It's a one-game one-off. They could just as easily beat the Yankees. It's one game.
You send Girardi off, and that's pretty cool. I mean, who doesn't like that?
Well, no, I'll be rooting for the Twins tonight, and it'd be great to see it. I don't think, obviously from here that they have much of a chance, but okay.
I think the good news is, though, for the Twins, it's not Kershaw or Bumgarner or Jake Arrieta.
Severino.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
no,
and then you got Santana going for you, and that kid can pitch.
Yeah.
Even though he's older than me.
You got a little something going on. I like it. It's I'll be rooting for it, and I love the return of baseball. Anyhow, Matthew Leach will be joining us. He reached out to me over the weekend while we were watching the Florida State game, and he and I always shoot the breeze about a little bit of music too, but I do look forward to tonight. And I listen, I got to tell you, I'm a regular season baseball guy. I believe there's a tempo and a pace to that suits me, and that is forever baseball. It is the way I like the season and the way I like to watch is with the idea that there is a tomorrow. That, in fact, there's a lot of tomorrows. That this is a bad week, but next week will be better. That it's okay. That's the way I like to watch that sport. It's why I'm so glad they play 162 games. It's why you can go on a 3-game losing streak and not feel a sense of panic. Postseason's not that way. And I look at it as a different entity altogether. I like it too, but for very different reasons. And there's an immediacy to it that differs from the pace that I'm describing, but that I can also embrace and accept. And listen, my team's not in it, so now I just do it for the love of the game, for the love of the action, for the love of the intensity, for the love of what's at stake.
Well, and the good thing is, too, in the postseason, the atmospheres are always great, no matter where you are. Now, I grew up, unfortunately, watching a lot of postseason baseball in the Bronx, the old Yankee Stadium. They were on every single year, and they were the big giant that everybody tried to slay. And the one thing I will say, though, I got a lot of family members who are Yankee fans. They know baseball, and they get loud at the right times. Everything they do has a place and a reason for it.
Sure.
So the atmosphere is going to be killer, even though it's the same stadium that's more corporate. I don't think it has the same kind of feel to it as old Yankee Stadium. But the atmosphere counts, no matter what sport you're watching. I think that's one thing. I mean, people like watching Seattle Seahawks football if it's a mediocre game because that place gets really loud.
Place rocks, yeah.
People can sit down and watch a Premier League game because look at how into it the fans get. Olympic hockey, playoff hockey, atmospheres matter, and that's the cool thing about the postseason too. A Wednesday night in July, give or take, the people aren't that engaged, but every pitch matters, and that only heightens the broadcast and heightens the feel you get. I also should note, too, I'd be remiss as the program director here, we have the wild card game on tonight. Pregame starts at 7.
For people that are working, man, that's a thing of beauty.
People that are working, driving around town, we'll have the wild card game tomorrow, and then we'll carry most of the division, championship, and World Series, save for Saturdays when we have college football. But this is going to be your home for the postseason for Major League Baseball.
You mentioned the pitching matchup. Irvin Santana this year was simply great. 16-8 with a 3.28, 1.13 whip. You probably wouldn't have predicted that, but he did. And then Severino for the Yanks is their best pitcher. It's not that close. 14-6 with a 2.98 and a 1.04 whip.
Just an absolutely goofy year for the Twins. They're obviously in the negative in the run differential for most of the season and winning in spite of that. This was supposed to be the final year of the rebuild. I mean, this is all smoke and mirrors. They wanted to trade Irvin Santana when it was June. They said, well, you know what, let's trade these pieces off. But they stayed so close into the race that they decided, well, we can't trade everything away. The rebuild will continue, but we're going to win a wild card here, it looks like, so we have to stay the course.
It was one of the discussions and talking points we had about what GMs do when you're in this quandary, because the negative run differential that you're talking about and the building project that they were undergoing suggested, and all signs pointed to, and the red alarm sound rang in the background, that this is a farce, that this is not sustainable. You cannot continue to win games and give yourself a chance to make the playoffs until you look up and there's a month to go in the season, and you've got a chance to make the playoffs. And sometimes the year goes that way. Ordinarily, you follow the Pythagorean. If you're sub 500, if you're negative in the run differential, You're just not going to have a winning record. At best, you might have a 500 record. You won't do what they did in reversing a 103-loss team from the season ago to winning 85 games.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, for those who just watch the game and say, screw the Pythagorean, if you watch the Twins, you know they're not that great of a baseball team.
Yeah, just actually watching
If
them.
you just watch them
You're
play.
like, yeah, they're not that good.
Like, they play really great defense. They got one good pitcher. They hit
do
some
hit
home runs.
They do hit home runs.
They play, I mean, their defense is solid too. So the little things that matter in the postseason, they might get a chance in a best of 5 if they get through tonight.
If you pick up if you pick up the baseball, you give yourself a shot. By the way, the Twins, I did not know this, and I guess I should have, and I suppose the aforementioned girlfriend of yours probably is aware of it. If she's not, turn off your radio. If you're listening, you don't want to hear this. The Twins have lost 12 straight postseason games. That is the second longest streak in the history of baseball.
I mean, if she didn't know it, she'll know it by the third inning about 8 times over. That's a graphic that will be reused.
Well, they're one shy of tying the all-time record for most consecutive losses in the postseason.
The Mets hold it?
I don't think so, no.
It just seems like a very Mets thing.
9 of their 12 consecutive losses in the postseason are to the Yankees.
Woo.
So a little bad blood, a little nastiness here, right? A little something for you.
Who was it? Gardenhire that was managing all those good teams?
Good old Gardenhire. Good Lord, you're bringing back memories. Those Twins teams were fun, man. Yeah, he was there forever.
Those are the little teams that could before Moneyball and Sabermetrics were synonymous with the Oakland Athletics. The Minnesota Twins were that team that had the low payroll and just contended every single year.
You know what's funny? They also had good players, but what's really funny is did you watch Moneyball was on the other night? I watched it again. And for as much as you can poke holes in the idea of Moneyball specifically being the reason, or that overriding philosophy from Billy Beane is why Oakland, they helped that they had a bunch of Cy Young pitchers.
Yeah.
I always point that out.
Well, same thing with, you got Liriano and Johan Santana.
Great.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that'll work. That usually carries the day. But in addition to that, though, just as an aside, that's a really well-done movie. They did a great job with that film. Because the reason I say that, the potential for that to be a disaster for baseball heads, for people that love the game, you've got people playing baseball players, playing managers, playing baseball. You can really screw that up in a hurry, and they nail that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things, but I mean, Hollywood's never going to nail a sports movie because they have to appeal to more than just the baseball head.
Right, and it's very rare that you get that close to getting it right. I mean, sometimes they do, and you love it, and you're like, well, that's pretty close.
Well, I thought Any Given Sunday and Playmakers were just absolute documentary-style performances and presentations of the sport.
We had this discussion not long ago of movies that just don't hold up in any way, and maybe even movies that you didn't like at the time, and you knew you didn't like them, but you weren't aware of just how hopelessly bad they were. Any Given Sunday is one of them. Go watch that nonsense. Oh, my goodness. The football in that is so bad. And the things that are said and the conversations, and Al Pacino as a coach is terrible. He's great in the locker room. The speech is awesome. It's the one Jimbo's always quoting about the inches.
Yeah.
He must love that speech. I, too, love that speech. That scene is the only good thing about the movie. It's a great scene. But every other aspect of that film, whether it's what's her face?
Cameron Diaz.
Who's terrible.
In that movie.
Like historically bad. Like nobody should be that bad in a movie ever.
Did you know your third down defense is not? It's like, whoa. You got to be able to do that.
You got to be able to say that like you mean it.
Because the point is, you're a master of it.
Right.
In spite of the world looking at you as a woman, you're a badass.
And she couldn't do it. She proved the point. She proved the point. We're like,
she went the other way.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Go watch that again.
And there's James Woods.
Everything. That the whole damn film is terrible.
These men are gladiators. I'm letting them play.
You're talking about catering to every single stereotype and trope that's ever existed for an athlete, a coach, a rogue doctor,
a media member,
a female owner, everything.
Come on, dog, pound it, John C. McGinley.
It's so bad. His Jim Rome is awful. It's just...
Your smack is whack, man. Which is funny, though. That's a hell of a dig at Rome.
Yeah, they're taking
shots.
This
is what you look like, clown.
He laughs from his mansion in Hollywood.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
But he still knows when the head hits the pillow.
He does. A very big pillow in a gigantic room.
I think a normal-sized pillow for that dude is a giant pillow.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it's probably 3 times the size of what it is for any other person's head who's not 4'11". But yes, I got you. All right. I'm going to sniffle my way through the end of this show and then move it to Seminole Headlines, which is what you get next. I'm going to warn you, as we go to Seminole Headlines, that it's particularly negative. I mean, it's brutal.
So Corey wasn't being sarcastic when I put out the programming notice and he said, hold on to your butts.
Oh, I didn't know he did that.
He did on Twitter.
Well, we're not real nice.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, maybe it's a rehashing. I don't know. I would tell you to listen to it because I think it's fun and obviously welcome in two different opinions or two different people anyhow, besides just me. But there's just, here's the thing. I thought about it afterwards. What are you going to do? It's not like you can just jump up and down about the big win you just pulled out at the last second against Wake Forest after losing the previous game to NC State.
Well, once again, it's pretty basic. Your preseason
really
expectations are embraced by your head coach, and he says that's why you play at Florida State, and their playoff in 2016, playoff 2017. We're at October, and I suppose it's not mathematically impossible at this point in 2017, but you could argue it's pretty much wrapped up before you hit October in both those years. I mean, damn it, man. You're not a victim of your own success, are you, buddy?
I've used to preach it over and over and over again. I am fascinated by, and we do bring this up, I am fascinated by how they're going to look on Saturday. There's a little, listen, I've got it wrong with them so far. That sounds strange, but I thought they'd lose to Alabama. The way they lost to Alabama isn't necessarily the way that I thought they'd lose to Alabama. I did think that they would struggle to move the ball, and they did struggle to move the ball. But short of that, I didn't think special teams would be the primary reason they lost the game. And then I thought they'd beat NC State. I thought the extra layoff actually helped them given the injury that happened at quarterback, and I thought the extra time would allow for him to work something up into the game plan that would allow that young man to feel comfortable. And surely I thought the defense would carry over and play with the same intensity and effort and discipline that they had against Alabama. But then that didn't happen. And then I thought, well, okay, weird set of circumstances, but they're so vastly superior athletically than Wake Forest. They'll go beat Wake Forest. Everything will be all right. They'll hammer Wake Forest if they just show up because Wake's going to run the zone read stuff they run. We'll win the line of scrimmage, and we'll be all right. And then, we have 7 yards passing at halftime. So it's hard to guess what the hell they're going to do.
Special teams cost you, and then the next two games is a good thing we had special teams.
It's bizarre. They take turns. You were right. You used the analogy. We bring it up again today on the show, and Ira brings up the fact that you mentioned it. It is whack-a-mole. It's like, well, here's a problem. Got it. Oh, God, there's another one over here. Get it.
What I was saying last week is it's like Jimbo is the handyman. It's some sort of vaudeville slapstick little play, and there's 3 decks, and he's putting out, there's a leak, and then he's fixing the leak, and then
he's got his finger in the hole over here,
right,
and he's got his foot over here, and he's trying to paint with his teeth.
But the truth, yeah, right, exactly. Right, but the truth of it is he's not the handyman. He's the guy who bought the building, and he put in the utilities, and he paid
he's
for
the
it.
landlord, yes.
Yes. And the utilities are, everything about that building, the plumbing, he contracted all of it out.
And the things that he's going to need to do to fix it, he can't do until afterwards. And that leaves us all after the season. So that leaves everybody holding their breath.
And the tenants are all models, They're just the picture of, man, these are the people you want living in your building.
And then they just stop paying rent. Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not.
Exactly.
You never really know.
The third floor is the great floor, then the first floor is the great floor, then the second one, and it just goes on and on and on and on.
So anyhow, some of the headlines is next. Good job, Matthew. Good job, Tom. And don't forget, 7th Hill Tap Room tonight for the War Chant Man Cave show. If you're going to watch that, just go online to warchant.com and watch it. It'll be a good thing. Or you can swing on by. That sounds good, too. Talk to you guys tomorrow.